Here we go on how to protect Couchbase with universal shares. So I've got a Couchbase server I set up here, and it's just got a couple demo databases it comes with just for samples. So you're going to use those because it's easy to do. So as you can see, I'm looking through these. You can see it's running, and I got the server node up there. Nothing too crazy. So the first thing we're going to do is set up a universal share point that we can use for Couchbase to send backups to. So the first step, we got to go over to the NetBackup UI, and in the storage dialog there's universal shares. And I'm going to keep this really simple. I'm going to add an NFS share that Couchbase can use. So I just give it a name that makes sense to me. Type that in there, and then you can use NFS, you can use CIFS, and you can use user permissions and whatnot. I'm just going to do host-based permissions, so I put the same server that the Couchbase DB is running on in there. So now I've got that universal share created. That will basically be a storage target for Couchbase to send data to. After this, what I have to do is figure out how to get that set up and mounted on the server that I'm going to use for the backups. To do that, I'm going to have to go in here, and I got to figure out what the export path is. So I'll pull this out. I'll go on to the Couchbase server, and I can make a universal share point to mount that on. So I'm just going to call it Couchbase Backups. So I have to mount this. Basically, it's pretty straightforward. I have the NetBackup server, which is the host for the NFS share. So I just got to put in that host name. And it's just like mounting normal NFS. So host name, path, and don't forget to give it a target destination. So there we go. That's where that gets mounted. Now once I've done that, I can just run CB backup to do a backup. So in this case, I'm just going to do a backup of the whole server. And so we'll back up all the databases on the server to that path I specified. And it creates its own backup structure under there. And you can do incrementals and all sorts of stuff like that. Those do add additional, when you're doing recoveries, it recovers a little more work, but it does. And going over here, I'm going to go over to the NetBackup server, and just to show that the share stuff is, of course, visible on the NetBackup server, so you can go in here and see right in here, you can see where that's the backup. So the master server, or the NetBackup server, will have that over there. The next thing that we want to get into is protection points. So just going to demonstrate this a little bit. This is not required, but it's a handy feature. It's the ability for NetBackup to go in and configure a policy. Right here, I'm just doing it in the Java UI. But essentially, and I've got some other ones like this already, but I'm going to go in here, and I'm just going to copy one of these just to make it easy. So do this, and I'll call this ushare Couchbase. Got to type it right. And then after this, all I need to do is, you set up a schedule. You can do full incrementals, those sort of things. You should point out these backups when they happen are completely synthesized. So I usually just do fulls, but because there's no real incremental data, it's just creating a point-in-time image. In this example too, one cool thing with universal shares is the client name doesn't matter. So you can use whatever name would be useful for you to maybe keep track of what things are going on. And this would be like when you go to do the recovery, if you had created a backup and you sent it somewhere else, or you wanted to recover it from a backup in that backup storage, because creating backups helps you do things like, do SLPs, or maybe send secondary copies to the cloud for secondary storage. This, like I said, this host name really doesn't matter, but it is the name you would key off of if you were going to go do a restore. This is kind of like how you would index it. And the hardware operating system doesn't matter either, so you just put in whatever you want. It's just an easy way to do things. From the backup selection then is you give it the share name that is exported. So in this case, I can just put that share down and hit OK and commit the policy, and then I'll just go manually run this. You can see how these different things use different shares and stuff like that. So to manually run it, I just go in here and just do boom, 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 and it's running. That's what it looks like in the Java GUI. So in the web UI over here, I can look at the job details. And what we're really seeing here is I'm just showing the job runs, it does a backup. It's all real cool. Essentially, as you can see, deduplication's happening, optimization is happening. And like I said, what's going on here is it's really kind of cool because it's not actually moving any data. The data's already been dumped there by Couchbase. We are just going to basically look at that point in time and create a snapshot of that point in time and then turn it into a backup image. And the value of doing that is that not only do I have a dump situation, but there is no real sweep. It just suddenly can become a backup. And then I can do things like, from a backup admin perspective, get out there and send those things around. So what I've done now here is I've created a database here that I'm going to restore to. You got to create the bucket to restore to it. So I did that backup earlier. And so I got that set up. I'm going to run really quick. Let me show you that. I'll run just to demonstrate this. I'll run another backup again. So this is a whole SAP backup. It's dumped all the data again, but once again, it's going right into the storage server, right into a deduplication pool. So all of this is getting deduplicated. So this backup, because there's not much change, is going to take up little to no more space than the previous backup did. And not only does it back it up, when it writes it, it gets it's going to optimize all those writes. So it's minimal storage usage on the secondary storage target that this guy is backing up to. And let me show you a little bit, like if I look at a second job here, and I'm going to just restart this one again. You can see it's going to run another job. The first job, the transfer rate's kind of funny because in this case it's not a lot of data and it runs so fast it doesn't know what to say about it. But essentially it didn't really do any data movement, so it's not really relevant. But what you can see here is you got 99.9% dedupe, so this is a backup run against stuff that's backed up before again. So then we go up and we look at this is the new one run later, and you can see once again it moved a little more data, more files, but still getting really great dedupe, which is really cool. Now let's show you how to restore. So now let's say I've got a want to restore from maybe right from the share, or even I could do a restore of the data onto the share and recover it. I run that, it comes back, and so you can see this is populated with the data, and you can see they match between the two, and there you go. That's Couchbase protection.